and welcome to the Better Thyself segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We always want to finish our jobs in time, but do we do that? That's $1,000,000 question. What's more important? Is it to finish the job in time, or is it to strive for perfection? And I do not deny that perfection is something which we all aim at. But getting a job done and getting a task performed is much more important than be bogged down in the utopian quest for perfection. Because perfection is always a distant goal. And I agree, as I said, that this need and desire to be perfect is great. But the result in getting the job not done, then it's not desirable. You feel better mentally, emotionally, when the job has been formed. And in the quest for perfection, instead of performing the job, you are endlessly agonizing over a task. Your boss just handed you a big project to complete. It's a high-profile assignment, and you hope it will give you great visibility in the organization, maybe lead to promotion. You're so excited. And you are passionate, you start working. Great. And then what happens? Just at the right time, when you should focus for hours without interruption and clear off everything, you start ruminating. And the ideal time for doing the job never arrives when before you know it, you are scrambling under immense strength with too much to do. You may get the job work submitted by time, but not with the standard you would prefer. But if you miss the deadline, then you know what happens. As a matter of fact, in my work as a CEO and a consultant, I've seen that the key to getting the most things done at the highest level and impressing the most people is actually through aiming for less than perfect. And how to do it? The most effective way of doing a job is not very difficult. You can start it today, even if it feels awkward. I often encourage people to understand that you can't do everything all at once. Let's be very clear. You have got to do it in steps, starting with the baby steps and then running a marathon. But if you struggle with perfection, then planning to do something later can easily slide into procrastination because you are unwilling to start until you reach the optimum state of professional nirvana. And believe me, nirvana never comes. So if you are falling into that trap, stop it. Stop it before it's too late. Because what happens? You want to avoid in the quest for perfection, and each second lost is crucial. At the very best, sit down and brainstorm what steps you will need to take to get the job done. I prefer to start right away from my desk with a piece of paper, and I feel like it helps me think more effectively when I'm writing with pen on a paper. But you may prefer to record the steps digitally. Either way, you want to start right away. Now, perfectionists are okay, and I love perfectionists myself, but then you have to start very early. If you are starting with the perfectionist tendencies now, after having been who cares attitude, then you would always be able not to do the job. So the most common areas where I see this issue flare up is when you want to be perfectionist and you can't be. You are mentally predetermined, and then the concept of perfection eludes you. So you focus on the production, get the work acceptable level in each area, so you can come back and refine it. Finish the job, refine it, re-refine it, and so on. You can keep on polishing it. As Mr. Churchill used to say, that is like a diamond. But if you don't do it, then you can't do it. The key to the success is to give you a time limit. Do the work, then move on to the next part. This does not mean that everything will go according to the schedule. Let's be very clear. Timelines are guidelines. You can finish it sooner than the timeline permits you to do it. But that does not mean that you should not be adhering to it. There may be times when you need to spend an extra time for finishing the job. But if you're going hours and hours beyond that timeline, that determine the appropriate amount of time, then you're likely to stop yourself and move on. So the plan A, B, C should be there. But the focus should be on the work. And then another problem. In a quest for perfection, we always lose sight of the work. And we look for the feedback. Is it good? We ask our friends, our colleagues, our juniors, our peers, and our seniors. And once you get into working, you find yourself getting stressed. You find yourself getting overthinking. You're wondering how others will respond to what you present. It's just like your social life. You want to do something, then you start thinking, what would people say? What would relations say? What would colleagues say? And that's exactly what happens in the work as well. So your focus shifts. And when the focus shifts, now you know what I mean and what you can imagine, the whole things get thrown out of the job. So this leads to analysis paralysis. I call it an analysis paralysis. You are paralyzed by analyzing it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it the correct approach? Would it not be better if I do that way? And as Hamlet says, when there's too much of thought, there's too little action. So you invest much more time in thinking than in doing. So you have to avoid this type of perfectionism. So how do you do it? Integrate constructive feedback on how you can improve. But then try to block out the thoughts about the future, how people will or won't respond. Vague concerns about people will think, what people will think will not affect your work. And amazingly, people who always think what people would think don't do anything to help. Because people are not really actually helping you to get the work done. They are, what they might think or might not think is only a stumbling block. So when these invasive thoughts come to you, sit down, shut up with that truth. And how do you do it? Tell yourself, I can't control how people do, how people think, how people respond. All I can do is to work. All I can control is what I do now and do it. To help with what the people think. If you are satisfied, be sure the carping critics would keep their mouths shut. And this will also reduce your stress in the process and help you get the work done that can lead to better results and therefore better feedback. And even if you don't get some legitimate critiques that can help you do a superior job next time, that's okay. A growth mindset is healthy. If you have performed a job and it's satisfactory, it may not be A1, but maybe it's A. Maybe it's B plus, but then you can aim at B plus to A to A plus, and so on. So what that means is you develop a growth mindset. That is healthy. Recognize that you can always develop and improve over time. You don't need to get everything right all at once. And if you hold yourself to every deadline, that's most important. You shouldn't be scrambling at the last possible minute in order to get the work done. You started early enough to, at least to get the basics. Did not overinvest in a particular part. And if it wasn't wrapped up in your concept of what the people would think, you can perform the job pretty well. Now, look, the deadline is here. And I'll recommend you give everything a look over again before you submit it. Then ship it out. And what I normally do is, don't redo a whole part that was already fine. So when you're doing it, it is fine. And then you say, well, if I do this way. No, if it's fine, period. Then don't decide you are going to do it in a different direction. Suppose I had done this. Suppose I had adopted this approach. No. You have taken a decision, stick to it, unless it's a disaster. Then don't keep on refining it. So that's amazing. And amazing to the extent that you miss that deadline. People are in the habit of refining the process. It's good. But then look at the constraints of the time, the resources. Time is the most precious resource. Even money, other people's time, the requirements of the organization, requirements of the job, requirements of the work involved, and all that. I agree, you want to do an excellent work. But as a matter of fact, many times, at least 80% times, good work, not excellent work, delivered on time is better than the excellent time that never happens, or might never happen, or might happen in 5% cases. So perfection is welcome, but not at the cost of not meeting the deadline. Your boss, your colleagues, your clients don't need the mental burden of being always concerned that if something is in your field, it might not get done. Then you develop a reputation. Well, this man can never meet the deadline. He does excellent work, but he doesn't meet the deadline. And that's a crucial setback. Apart from increasing your stress level, it is destroying your dependability. And if you're not a dependable worker, a dependable colleague, and a dependable boss, then you'll be taken with disdain and very lightly. So, people will think, well, things would get done. It would be an excellent work. But what's the use of excellent work if it's not delivered on time? If you can consistently start to deliver on time, that trust level will go up increasingly, as a matter of fact, exponentially. And that will improve your stature, improve your acceptability, and make you dependable. And that's why I have learned that lesson early, and that helps me. And it will help you. And my staff learned it from me, and I could say that they were so efficient the moment they understood the concept that perfection is an aim, but not something which constricts my schedule. And secondly, it will also improve your relationship and reduce the work. You know this time is allotted, so the next job which is waiting for you to be undertaken when the first job is finished will be taken up in time. And once you start delaying, then it is never-ending cycle. One job delay means the second job delayed. And not only that, you delay your part of the job, and the job of your colleagues would also be delayed for no fault of theirs. And that is only because you were thinking in the terms of being a perfectionist. A perfectionist approach seems to be a great way to excel in the work. But believe me, it's counterproductive. And mind you, I'm not saying that perfection is not to be aimed at. But perfection is not to be aimed at the cost of performing a job in time. Otherwise it will be counterproductive. So if you fuse strategies, planning, scheduling, and then there are two lists. To-do list, not to-do list. People always prepare, even in ordinary life. Well, this is what I have to do, you list of the things. This is a list to do. But have you ever prepared a list not to do these things? Not to look at the email for the next 1 hour or the first 2 hours of my morning. Not to look at the messages. To respond to all the messages within 15 minutes of their arrival. These are things to do and not to do. You have got to decide that. But if you want to have a healthy relationship with the work, with the people, with the organization, with the clients, then believe that perfection is welcome, but not at the cost of performance, not at the cost of delivery in time. And if it's not delivered in time, believe me, you are going to suffer. And that is the most unfortunate thing, because you are going to suffer from later on a feeling of getting isolated mentally and even socially. People are going to use you as a bait. Well, he's a great, but you can't depend on him. And if you are not a dependable colleague, worker, officer, then what are you? So better yourself by delivery on time. Work delivered in time is better than a perfect work not delivered. Thank you.